Okay, so we all know that horror anime is bad. Thank you, thank you, muchas gracias, and thanks for watching everyone, and I hope to catch you in the next video. But seriously, as far as I remember, horror anime has had a weird issue where they can begin extremely well with their horror elements and can be somewhat scary, but for some reason at some point later down the story, the horror elements begin to fall off. And this is because his story turns into an action-packed and sometimes gory mess, which I have dubbed the Resident Evil effect. If you've ever played any Resident Evil game, then you would know that the beginning of these games can be pretty intense. Most of the time, you would arrive at these seemingly abandoned locations, with the game telling you a little bit of information about what's going on. You try to find your way through this place with limited resources, while also finding clues about why your mission is taking place here. And the games do a really good job at building up tension, as nothing happens for the next several minutes until... Unfortunately, that's usually the first half of these games. The second half are action segments with horror elements, in which at that point the games has switched from horror survival to an action horror. And this is the same case with a lot of anime out there. And so my question is, why is horror anime so bad? To answer this, let's go back some decades before anime wasn't as big as it is today, and when horror manga was just beginning to surface. It's September 2nd, 1945. Japan signed the surrender document during a ceremony on the deck of the battleship USS Missouri. This day marked the end of World War II, and in the following years, Japan would drastically change to what it is today. However, the people of this time will never forget what happened in World War II, and during the following decades, Japan will release a large number of media, some that were synonyms to the atrocities that happened during the war. So, the first big horror manga to come out during this time was Shigeru Mizuki's Gegege no Kitaro in 1960. And yes, I know it might not seem like a horror manga, but it has horror elements, damn it. The last survivor of the Ghost Tribe, in his adventures with other ghouls and strange creatures of Japanese mythology. But we're not focusing on this story, as it's more of a kids-friendly type of manga. With this said, however, do not underestimate this child of a war veteran, because while doing research for this video, I found some of his artwork, and I know that if he wanted to give us worst, he could have. Instead, we're focusing on the great-grandfather of horror manga, Kazuo Umezu, also known as God of Horror Manga. I can tell you that this guy is not playing around, despite his weird appearance. He began releasing manga in the mid-60s, but he gained popularity from his works Reptalia, a horror trilogy manga that follows a monstrous woman who is able to transform into a snake-like being and terrorizes a family, and Cat-Eyed Boy, which follows, well, a cat-eyed boy. Yeah, he doesn't really get a name, as he tries to find a home, but instead is met with hostility because people believe he brings misfortune. But the story I want to focus on, which could also be considered his magnum opus, is his 1972 manga, The Drifting Classroom, a story that focuses on a 6th grader named Sho Takamatsu as he travels through time along with his whole school to a post-apocalyptic future ravaged by environmental disasters and monsters. We see his skills as an artist shine, as he shows through many of the manga panels the grotesque monsters that plague this future, Along with the confusion, despair, hatred, and hopelessness these kids and teachers go through, a reflection of the horrors that Umezu might have gone through when he was younger, as he grew up in a war-torn Japan. So what makes his story so good? And why is this manga considered to be one of the most important and influential works of horror manga? Well, there are two reasons. One, it does a better job at tackling our primal fears, compared to other manga released during this time. You see, to increase our chances of survival for thousands of years, our early ancestors developed these primal fears, fears which are now deeply rooted within the human psyche, which include fear of darkness, heights, predators, death, and isolation. Of course, there are many other things people are scared of out there.
Bring out the olive!
But these are usually the ones every one of us can relate to. And at a time where a lot of horror manga was experimental and had to be either kids friendly or extremely violent, Umezu's The Drifting Classroom instead changed things to be more realistic by depicting how people would really react if they were put in the same situation as the characters, drawing inspiration from his time growing up during the war and after it, a time where a lot of Japanese people were afraid of the war and what its outcome could mean for the country. And this here is the second reason why it's considered an important and influential work of horror. A lot of works of horror out there come from human events, such as World War II, but they can also arise from personal experiences or struggles in life. A great example of a mangaka to take personal events in his life to create horror works is the great Junji Ito. Ito was heavily inspired by the works of Kazuo Umezu, and you can see this much in his art style. However, where they differ is in their storytelling, as most of Ito's works come from personal experiences and fears he had when he was a child, such as when he had to go to the bathroom in his childhood home, which was located at the end of an underground tunnel, where he would often see spider crickets. And I don't know if you've ever seen a spider cricket, because I hadn't either, but look at these fucking things. They're massive. Okay, like I understand his fear of them. Aside from this though, Tomie is also partially inspired by the death of a classmate, which is an experience he had while growing up. Having someone you used to go to school with, maybe even if you weren't close with them, pass away, it still affects you in some way. But there were also many other instances where Ito experienced something or simply had a conversation with someone that sparked his imagination to create some of these unsettling stories. One such story being his most famous one, Uzumaki. This story focuses on a small coastal town, as the people begin to be plagued by a supernatural curse involving spirals. And that's about as far as I will get with the explanation. Seriously, go read Uzumaki, you will get a better experience of the story, as its main focus of the horror is the fear of the unknown. But okay, enough about manga for now. Let's go back to anime. Unfortunately for anime, it hasn't been able to capture the same essence as manga, even when studios create anime adaptation of these great horror stories. But why is that? One of the biggest differences between anime and manga, aside from the fact that one medium deals with animation and the other's drawings on paper, is how each adapts to their own medium in storytelling. Manga, for example, relies heavily on the author's style of drawing and the way they use contrast to draw their characters, which is the reason a lot of these mangas are iconic. Just look at these pages from some of the Junji Ito stories, and notice how even when there is no shocking or distressing scenes, some of the characters are already looking gloomy, which he uses to prepare us for the upcoming events. Or the way he plays around with shadows to over-stylize his characters, and sometimes even the monsters, to let readers know that in a way, that these stories are, well, dark. Finally, the way he uses the page turn, almost like a pause, to build up tension, before you're greeted on the next page with the horrors his characters are facing. Anime, of course, can't rely on these methods, as they have to keep moving along with the story. Therefore, they might have to use long shots to build up tension, along with silent moments or eerie music, to create moments of suspense. But this is where they kinda fail at it. As I was trying to find clips for this section of the video, I struggled to find anime that genuinely had me scared or made me unsettled. I only managed to remember a few that did just that. Perfect Blue, Mononoke, and Higurashi. Perfect Blue because of what the main character experiences, and is something any of us can go through. Mononoke because of the art style, the way it's animated, and the sound design. And Higurashi because of the mystery it presented. It made me want to keep watching, along with the way characters were acting at certain points during the story, which made me unsettled. This is still only a small pool compared to the majority of other horror anime that are out there. So, what's the problem? I don't think horror in anime doesn't work because it's animated. There are many short animations out there that do a really good job of showing animated horror. The thing is, I don't think horror anime is well produced. The vanilla art style of any other anime just doesn't work well with the genre, alongside with the music and sound design. And the way moments that are supposed to create suspense just don't work. Even simple shots like this could be enough to help out some horror anime out there. Which is wild for me to think, considering Japan has some really good horror movies, urban legends, manga, and some of the best body horror you could ever see. So, will we ever get any consistently good horror anime shows?
No, thank you.
I think that'll be difficult, considering how other genres are by far more popular and appealing to consumers, which is why the genre has had a better run-in in manga. But for now, we can only hope that one day, hopefully in the near future, we can get a truly good horror anime. Thanks for watching. Okay. It is currently November 2nd. I meant to upload this back on Halloween, so whoops. But anyways, I just want to come on here and say I think there's some really good anime out there with some good horror elements. But again, just like I stated on my video, it just has good horror elements. There's yet to be an anime with just horror as its main focus, unfortunately. But yeah, let me know your favorite horror anime, or favorite horror manga, or even your favorite horror show. Whatever kind of horror media you like, let me know what it is. But anyways, thank you.